I think there's zero chance of unsupervised if Tesla is taking the liability.
You can't buy an NVIDIA autonomous car right now and have it drive you anywhere, or put that software in any vehicle and have it work as a robotaxi. But you can do that with a Tesla now anywhere in the United States, and actually like generating revenue in Austin at least. I had a friend of mine who works for one of the auto companies basically say, "Oh yeah, what we'll do is figure out what solution Tesla does or whoever that works, and then we'll just copy it, but do it more efficiently." I'm like, that's not a strategy. That's a hope. I think
Yeah.
there's been a lot of wishful thinking that we don't need to pay Tesla. This will be a commodity. Everyone's going to figure it out. And we'll just do a lower cost option without having to invest in the AI team and the data centers and the GPUs. We'll just outsource it. That's not a realistic strategy. The second part of that was that people are not expecting a licensing deal to be announced. So I guess two questions for you. Do you think we'll have an FSD licensing deal announced this calendar year at some point? And do you think that will be a massive surprise to the market or to anyone?
I think it'd be smart if it happened. I do think it would be a massive surprise because Wall Street's not modeling in much money for Tesla self-driving yet. They're beginning to, but they're struggling to figure out, okay, how do we model this in? I don't think necessarily they'll get clarity on the pricing. What's going to be the benefit per car for Tesla, for the other automaker to license it from Tesla? Be great if we did get that clarity so Wall Street can model it out. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's true that nobody's really expecting it. It wouldn't surprise me if we get one licensing deal this year, but if I had to peg a probability on it, I'd say maybe like a 40% chance that we get some sort of deal this year. If I were to broaden that out, say to end of next year, I think that's a lot more likely. I think it'll be more and more clear that there's not a cheaper option out there to deliver the actual capabilities of autonomy than licensing this. If you want to try to build your own, that's going to be way more expensive. So if instead you just pay, let's say it's $1,000 for all the sensors, like the cameras and the computer, and then maybe you pay Tesla half of the FSD price. So maybe it's like $4,000 on top of that. So then Tesla's getting a good chunk of they're getting that license essentially. GM or Ford or whoever could sell it for the comparable price as Tesla, $8,000 or whatever the price would be at that time. The assumption would be that any robotaxi revenues, so like the platform fee, would go to Tesla also. To me, that's a nice deal for Ford or GM. You don't have to do any of the analysis, and you get an option that will deliver you much more margin on your vehicles, even after paying for the royalty. I think the MBAs of these companies will just say, why wouldn't we have this as an option? It's like a free option to upsell your customers. I do think they'll get there eventually, but my sense is they'll probably delay taking the medicine until next year. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think Ford or other companies can suddenly magic up a solution
That was
to
intense. Look at that voice. Are you trying to
FSD.
intimidate me with your Clint Eastwood voice?
No, something came up here. They can't suddenly magic up a solution. They're not going to have the compute. You need all these great clips to start from the real world. Tesla had to figure it out and get all those clips before they could take the end-to-end approach. So there's all these gates and hurdles that people have to pass to solve this themselves. So they're going to be better off just buying it from Tesla. And I don't think people understand yet how good Tesla's software is, but they're going to quickly come to understand it. And there's going to be automotive CEOs that do try it out in Austin. I'm guessing Tesla's going to invite them to do it too.
Yeah, I
Jim
would
Farley's
guess
going to do it.
Jim Farley, he's a reasonable enough human being that he'll try it. He's resisted this in the past and said, "Oh, we're very confident with Blue Cruise." I also feel like you have to say that up until the point where you've made a decision that no, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. The CEO of Xiaomi, I believe, will come to the US and try it, and maybe BYD as well. I think they've done that to test out different Tesla versions. I would expect that, and I'm curious to see what happens. But I would be expecting licensing, worst case, by next year. I would think like 80% by the end of next year would be my probability. It's
Yeah,
just it's
that sounds
such a
about right.
killer feature.
It is. And especially if you think of how killer it will be by next year, if Elon's right and you can actually do unsupervised, then that becomes a must have feature. So I do think it's going to become increasingly likely as the feature set gets so much better than all the competition. It becomes harder for there not to be a licensing deal. I think with where they were 6 months ago, and even to some extent now, they can all say, oh, we've got these autonomy features that are available on some roads. They all have their pros and cons, but it's clear if you're driving the latest Tesla version 13 with hardware 4 is way better than anything else being offered. If it gets to the point where it's unsupervised, that's an absolute game changer in terms of the value proposition to your potential customer. Maybe that's the point at which like they have to license it because you just can't catch up at that point. So getting to the question of how quickly do we roll, and notice he said world. I actually just caught that. I kind of assumed he was talking about US, but he said world. This quote clearly speaks to the pace of how quickly it's going to roll out. So I guess that's the question. It almost seems too good to be true to think that Elon's promise earlier this year of by the end of this year, we'll get unsupervised FSD for just regular customers like you and I, and then hundreds of thousands to 1 million Robotaxis next year. It still seems unlikely to me, but I don't know. Where would you place the probability of that? Or maybe said another way, if you had to pick a date that your P50 of when do you and I get to sit in the backseat of our own cars, what would you say?
I think there's zero chance of unsupervised if Tesla is taking the liability. So I think they'll offer it if the customer gets the insurance and if they accept liability for the accidents. Now, maybe that's something trial lawyers will try and wiggle out of, but that's my opinion. I don't think Tesla's going to offer that for free. Go ahead, Matt.
So you said zero chance if Tesla takes the liability, but I think you meant to say zero chance they will let you have unsupervised FSD unless you're paying them to take the liability through Tesla insurance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or you're getting insurance or you waive the liability in some way.
Yeah, that seems obviously true.
So you're saying it's obvious, but when I raise this point to Randy Kirk or whatever, people think Tesla's just going to allow us to do unsupervised for free.
I don't think that's at all possible. Just play that out. So they give you the technology, it gets in a crash, even if it's not the car's fault. You believe that if somebody sues you, some trial lawyer wants to make a bunch of money, where do you go? You go to the target head that has the biggest wallet, which is going to be Tesla, not the individual. That would be a field day of a court case. To me, it seems very obvious that Tesla has to have the liability and that you have to pay Tesla for taking that liability on.
Yeah.
And Tesla insurance is an obvious way to handle that.
Beyond that point, what was the next part?
Okay, so when do
thousands of Robotaxis, right?
Well, and did you answer when do you and I get to go in the backseat of our own cars?
When unsupervised.
So contingent upon when Tesla insurance rolls out in our states?
I think they could do that by the end of this year. So like if they can iron out the wrinkles with the model with the 4 parameters and there's no new things they need to fix. Like the whole red light behavior is totally new. We didn't have that for a very long time. Like maybe it did that in version 7 or something like that.
Like very long time ago.
I don't even know if it started at 7, but the first version might have done that. All the versions between the first version and 13 would not go on reds.
I do remember that with the Third Row podcast. I don't know if you remember back in those days when Kristen and Omar and a couple others were doing this podcast. They had early access to the first version of FSD, and I remember following it so closely. And they're like, "It's just really good. It catches most of the red lights." And I was like, "Wait, most? Like how many? Probably 95%." I was like, "That is not a reassuring stat." So yeah, that's a funny regression to go back 5 years plus to those days.
About 100,000 or more Robotaxis on the road next year. I think it could happen. The limit for Texas would be 50,000 in the state, but I don't know if Tesla would be running all those. If they were running 5,000 or more in Austin, they would need to scale up a significant workforce to handle the charging and the processing of the cleaning. Even if they automate the cleaning, they would still need someone to trigger it. There's some tricky stuff around the fleet. They could also bring on customer-owned Model Ys, and then the customer is responsible for charging their Tesla at home.
Yeah, you're pretty big on the company owning robotaxis, and I get it. The economics are good, and that way you don't have to share the economics with anyone.
Mhm.
You got the crazy eyes.
I'm greedy.
At the same time, I'm also greedy. I'm a proud capitalist, but I think there's just challenges. If you were to just roll out as many as you could off the production line, we saw this with the Tesla dealerships really straining as the company went through this like S curve of the Model 3 ramp. They had a really hard time handling the logistics of delivering those cars to the people, much less all the day in and day out operations that would be required of cleaning and charging and all that. And the more you try to centralize that, the less it will work well. Meaning, if you want one company to handle that, if you have this parking lot right here that can fit 200 Teslas in, that's actually a lot more suboptimal just from a logistics standpoint than if you've got those same 100 spread out over 5 square miles in people's driveways, and they can send them out and have them return back and clean them and everything that's required. I think the operational challenges of scaling from 1 today to 1 million by the end of next year, I think that is extremely difficult. And I think it might be more cost effective and faster to just say, all right, we can handle scaling up logistically, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000, but then we'll just let everyone else opt into the network. You'll see the market adjust to where you can get the most money. I think distributing that responsibility on a micro level is going to be a more optimal way to scale than to have Tesla try to do it all.
It would help them scale a lot more quickly. We think Tesla could do about 50,000 in Texas, so they don't have to all be company owned, but they could be 50,000 full time. Arizona, you could probably do at least 25,000, if not closer to 30 or 40,000. Florida, they may need to work with an insurance partner there, but in Florida, you could easily do 50,000 or more, and maybe more like 60 or 70,000. So I could see a future where it's close to 200,000 or more by year end next year.
So some people might be hearing those numbers and saying, okay, that's not a whole lot. What happens in 2026 and 2027 and 2028 when you're just adding more and more vehicles to the market and saturating them? Are you just going to have extra demand or extra supply and they'll be underutilized?
Well, I want to talk to your point of it doesn't sound like a lot. So we did some calculations and we estimate around 400,000 full-time robotaxis would be needed to do the mileage that Uber does for their rideshare on an annual basis. 200,000 would be a lot.
I think some people might not necessarily be following the logic of, okay, if all of Texas can do 70,000, that actually doesn't sound like very many. Do you just saturate the market and the economics suck after that if you add more robotaxis? So why is that not the case?
Let's say they do 50,000 in Texas. So that would be cars mainly running at $2 a mile, coming in a little bit under the price offered by Uber and Lyft. The wait time would be 2 to 3 minutes. You have the benefits of not having a driver. In general, it'd be superior to an Uber with a lower price and a lower wait time.
Yeah.
So that would, you're not even saturating at 50,000 in Texas. Texas has a pretty high population, so you can...
And a lot of space in between. It's a must-drive location, right? There's a couple of places within downtown Austin, for example, which is somewhat walkable, but even then it's a very driver-centric city and state. But the longer term, like there's a future where you could have 500,000 robotaxis in Texas, right? So how do you 10x the scale?
I don't know. That's a little bit more than my big brain can handle today. Just blown away I'm excited for seeing them on the streets in Austin. I feel like there's going to be a community that's now going to be taking pictures every time they see a Tesla on the road, and then they're going to be zooming in on that picture to see, is there a driver or not? Does it have the Robotaxi on the side?
Yeah, that was cool badge, by the way. I thought that was a pretty sweet looking sticker. Took the Cybertruck graphic. What I was going to say,
your high level thought that you're not sharing?
Yeah, that's what I was about to
lead me to.
Kind of circle back to. So, the TAM that we were talking about of the daily commuters, if we're talking about meeting the existing TAM of Uber, you can do that with well under 1 million vehicles. But at that point, if you're just playing the same game that Uber is playing and charging $2.50 per mile, then like there's not a whole lot to be grabbing there, because like maybe then you only grab 30% market share or something like that. So the real game is to go cheaper price than Uber. You mentioned $2 at first, but what we've been modeling is as you approach a more meaningful share of Uber's total TAM, which is about 30 billion miles per year, you've got to lower the price. Uber did this study, which you've referenced several times. I think it bears repeating that if you lower the price by $1 per mile,
or two $1 miles.
Oh, sorry, two $1 per mile, the demand increases 20x. Which is mind blowing. It's not like a 20% increase. That's a 20x increase. So, and then all of a sudden, which Tesla can do, by the way, we think in the very long run with Cybercab and everything, Tesla can actually price this more like 50, 60 cents a mile at $1 per mile, which is what we're talking about. Then all of a sudden your 30 billion miles becomes a TAM of 600 billion miles. And so that's where I think you can get to having 500,000 vehicles in Texas or millions of vehicles across the United States, because you're at a lower price point. So you're increasing that demand. And that's the point where you'll have some people eschewing personal car ownership and opting instead just to purchase rides individually at a lower cost of total transportation. So you might go like from this scenario where if you take your car payment, insurance, fuel, and maintenance, and you add that up, maybe that's $600 a month. If you don't travel that much, maybe you end up paying, let's say you're the average person and you drive 10,000 miles a year. Maybe that math doesn't quite work as well, but you're getting close to the all-in cost of ownership. And if you are a less frequent driver, let's say you drive only 100 miles a month, which there are definitely a lot of people in that category, then you could be paying $100 a month for your transportation instead of $500, $600, plus the high upfront capital cost that we were talking about earlier. So this market really is a lot bigger at a lower price point than I think most people realize.
It's not going to be initially about replacing cars. I think the layup is going to be college towns. So you get a younger crowd that's more likely to try new things, try things on the app. And it's with commuters and people who are middle and working class who aren't as privileged as most Tesla owners. So we think this is going to be a big thing for Tesla and for society. He's Matt Smith. I'm Bradford Ferguson. And we're with Rebellionaire, Rebellionaire.com. We help all-in Tesla investors and also people who are not, and that's okay. And with that, I want to say,
we'll meet you where you are.
Well,
and we do believe in covered calls. So we're celebrating that we didn't sell covered calls, but we are going to get right back to the well. Can't guarantee we'll do it for sure next week, but generally, like after you've got a run up like this, it's like a great time to take advantage of the increased volatility. Super excited for what we've been able to do for clients. And if you're interested in learning more, go check us out.
Yep. With that, I'm going to say bye for now.
Bye for now.